Started this morning. I want to welcome everyone here this morning, those that are here in person and obviously those online. And thank you, Mayor Jepson, for jumping on so that we have a quorum now to make sure we can conduct our business. As typical, when we start our meetings, we need to do a roll call. So I guess we'll go around the room here first, and then I'll turn it over to Jordan to go ahead and take care of the ones online, if that's okay. So let's go ahead and start down at this end.
Rosie Hernandez, Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Jordan Chandler, WFRC.
Calvin Clark, MAG.
Kendall Willardson, MAG.
George Johnner, Wasatch Front Regional Council, Long Range Planning Group.
Carla Merrill, Alpine City Mayor, but here for MAG.
Jared Bowling, AT Planning Manager, UDOT.
Stephanie Tomlin, Trails Division Director, UDOT.
Hugh Van Wagenen, WFRC staff.
Okay, Joy Petro, Layton City Mayor.
Ellen Burrell, Cottonwood Heights City Council.
Russ Fox, UTA.
Meg Pageon, Wasatch Front Regional Council.
Ironhead, Wasatch Front Regional Council.
John A. Nardone, WFRC.
Bill Waitmont, volunteer organizer.
David Rogers, Murray City.
Lauren Victor, WFRC.
Okay, that's everyone in the room. So Jordan.
Online, we have Brett McKiff, Steve, Isaac Hyam, Angelo Papastamos, Mark Bradley, Carl Osterberg, Terry Sori, Marisa Manzioni, Che Mosqueda, Alicia Ducara, Julie Bjornstead, Becca Rulf, Camille Alexander, Mike West, Hillary Schlehuber, Zach S., Kate Becker, Mayor Jepson, Chris Wiltsey, and Suzanne.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we do have one set of minutes that need to be approved. So hopefully you've all had a chance to read those. And if there's no corrections on it, then I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for our ACT meeting from August 13th of 2024. Would anyone like to make that motion? To accept the minutes? Including those online?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved in second. All in favor, please say aye. Okay, thank you. I think that's enough, right? We got enough, even the ones online. Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate that. We'll go on to item number 2 of our agenda item, which is the chair's report, which honestly, I just, what we're doing here is, I know recently we were able to have the Connect Communities Summit, which was held down in Provo. This event was a collaboration between Move Utah, a UDOT program, and then Get Healthy Utah and Bike Utah. So we'd like to just take a minute here to talk about those that attended and what their experiences was and takeaway. And so with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn the time over to everyone here to comment about their mobile tour event opportunities there. So is there anyone here that would like to kick us off? Sure, go ahead.
Yes, I attended the conference. I did not go on the mobile tours. Do you only want comments on the mobile tours?
No,
Yeah.
it's the whole thing because it was the first.
Okay, well, I got to see Hugh Van Wagenen in action as a lawyer debating, and that was fascinating. And that session, along with the others that I attended, were beneficial. They were informative. And coming from a municipality, I just urge the WFRC and UDOT and all that are involved to continue to think about how we move people. I just attended not to digress, but a legislative transportation committee meeting where they made a new appointment. And when I made comments about transit, they said, well, you need to talk to UTA. So I know that everyone in this room is interested in moving people. Those of us, I came here on my bicycle and I tried to ride front runner, but it was 29 minutes late. So I just both whether it's the MOVE conference or anybody in leadership, that we need to keep remembering that working people have to have reliable transit. If I rode my bike all the way to Front Runner to get to work and suddenly found out it was 29 minutes late, I would probably say to myself, I'm either going to have to drive my car or do something different. So my statement this morning is in conjunction with whenever we, the state of Utah, spend a lot of money putting on conferences and doing things, we need to remember we're in the business of moving people safely. Thank you.
That was an excellent comment. And that's exactly the feedback that we need. And I think collectively with all the groups together, that's the message going forward, right? We've got to figure this out so that it benefits all. Is there anyone else that has a comment on this? Would anybody online wish to comment as well? Oh, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, again, Kendall Willardson, I'm transportation planner with MAG down Utah County. It was really nice that it was down in Provo. It was a 5-minute walk from my house. So I really enjoyed that. But as well, one thing that really struck out to two things. One, there were a couple sessions that focused on students, on how students can be more involved in the process of with active transportation or with safety, and I think that's something I think would be really good. It's just these are our future leaders of our communities, right? Our future riders, and so how do we get them more involved in our processes? And there were a couple of good examples, I thought. And I kind of, one of my favorite sessions, it was a bit technical, but they were talking about how do we get across major highway interchanges, and that's always as different parts of my commute, and probably will be on my way back today. How do you address that? And a lot of the ideas they presented, I don't know if they're gonna have some of the slides or how that will work. But they weren't all very costly, and just there's a lot of temporary solutions that can be in place until you have to reconstruct. So I like the idea too that we don't always have to reinvent the wheel, and there are a lot of good ideas that if we're being proactive thinking about it right now, that we can implement those not too far in the future. So it was a really great conference for sure.
Excellent. I love it. Anyone else? I just have to make one comment myself. When you talk about moving students, yesterday I was up at the University of Utah campus, and I love what they've done up there as far as being able to get the students moving around, knowing how complicated that campus has become. But there was a section there that was just north of the swimming pool or the field house. And to me, that's kind of like the pedestrian commuter freeway, the way that they've striped that and the way that they've put 2 different lanes in there and been able to clearly identify, the crossway, the people crossing, but more importantly, knowing that you're going downhill as well. So those on any type of wheel source would gain speed. But yeah, I thought that was pretty ingenious there. And I think those are the type of things that we can look at within our inner cities as well. So, okay, if there's no.
One hand online.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's, okay, Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, hey there. Good morning, members of the WFRC. My name is Zach Scriven, and I'm a resident of Salt Lake City. I'm here today to express my strong support for the Rio Grande Plan. This plan presents a transformative opportunity to grade separate the rail through our downtown core, which will significantly ease the divide between the east and west sides of our city. By doing so, we can open up new land for redevelopment, make our cities safer, more connected, and more accessible for all residents. Importantly, the Rio Grande Plan is not just about transit. It will greatly benefit car users and pedestrians as well. By eliminating the at-grade rail crossings, we can reduce traffic congestions and improve safety for drivers and for pedestrians. It will create a safer, more walkable, and more direct routes, enhancing mobility and encouraging a more walkable city. Implementing the Rio Grande Plan will not only improve transportation efficiency across all modes, but foster community cohesion and stimulate economic growth through development opportunities. I respectfully urge the council to adopt this plan and prioritize swift execution for the betterment of our communities. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, Zach. I appreciate that. I believe your comment really falls within our next agenda item, which is our public comment. Prior to that, we were particularly talking about our, the Connect Community Summit, but that's okay. I was ready to move on. So at this point, I do want to acknowledge now is the time for public comment. So if there's anyone else that has any additional comments, please go ahead and step up to the podium and make sure you state your name and where you're from. Oh, push the little button. Yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
Mhm.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Elliot Mott. I'm a volunteer organizer. Sneaking up on 1,200 events that I've volunteered to organize through the years, mostly bike rides, but a lot of hikes and a lot of kayak tours too. So I'm very active out of doors, and I hope you are as well with our wonderful weather that we're experiencing now. I'm here to encourage you to join us on Saturday. We're riding the Legacy Highway Trail. It's been blocked off in recent years due to the construction of the West Davis Highway, but I believe it's open now. So we're going to ride that stretch that has been blocked off the last couple of years, see how it seamlessly moves into the West Davis Highway and how it also moves farther north into Farmington. So we're starting at 10 o'clock on Saturday. Please join us if you can. We're starting from Riverview Trailhead, which is on Redwood Road, about 1800 north. Bring your bikes ready to go at 10 o'clock. So thank you for the time.
And you're going to try to go how far north?
We'll go to Farmington Station, so it'll be an out and
Farmington.
back ride about 28 miles.
Okay, perfect. I can tell you, since I live up north, that that trail is also extended up through, and you can get out to the bird refuge actually as well. So
Yes, we do
that's
that. We
been-
also ride to Ogden, but
Yes.
the West Davis Highway is open now, and I've ridden that, and that rides very well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any other comments? Is there any more online? Okay, seeing that there's none, I'm going to go ahead and move our meeting along. We'll go on to item number 4, which is our Utah Trail Network Vision Process. And we've got Stephanie Tomlin here with the Utah Trail Network that will outline the public outreach process that will be taking place throughout the end of this year. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mayor. So yeah, Stephanie Tomlin with UDOT. I'm going to start out, if I can. If you came to the Connected Community Summit, apologies for the repeat, but we put together over the last several months a video that kind of helps outline what the goals of the Utah Trail Network. And sometimes if you can't say things as well as a video like this, it's just best to show the video, I think. So I'm going to start with that. It's about 4 minutes long, but it's a overview of what are the goals of the Utah Trail Network? What are we trying to achieve? Because I think in some ways it can kind of get maybe muted a bit in just the idea of like there being ongoing funding, but I love the overall vision of what we're trying to achieve. So with that, I'm gonna share my screen and hopefully then be able to share. I'm gonna optimize, share sound.
Utah is an awe-inspiring state. For people who love to be active outdoors, there's no better place. From the majestic peaks of our mountains in the north, to the sandstone structures of our deserts in the south, our state beckons people to explore life outside like no other. But that call to live life in the open air doesn't just stop where our communities start. So, what if there was a way to experience the outdoors by using trails for everyday travel? It's a challenge that could be met with planning, collaboration, and a shared vision. America's biggest transportation successes have always started with a vision. It's hard to imagine in America without the interstate highway system. But that system began in the 1950s with a plan to link existing local roads together and add larger interstate highways to form a nationwide network. Today, it connects people across the country, from North Dakota to Texas and New York to California. A similar vision is taking hold in Utah when it comes to trails. Many communities have already been investing in great local trails, allowing more people to walk, bike, and roll to destinations close by. But sometimes the jobs, stores, and recreation areas people need to access are just beyond their reach. That's because local trail networks don't yet connect to each other. Imagine local trails expanding to erase boundaries, tying in with neighboring communities and key destinations in the region. That's what a statewide connected trail network could do. To meet this need for regional trail connections, offering more travel choices for all Utahns, state leaders announced their vision for a statewide trail network in the fall of 2022. The Utah legislature then designated ongoing state funding to create a program to plan, design, construct, and operate the system. It's called the Utah Trail Network. And the Department of Transportation formed a new trails division to oversee it and make sure we build the right trails in the right places at the right time. The plan is to connect and create paved trails across the state for walking, biking, rolling, and more, serving people and bringing them together like never before. These trails will be separated from vehicle traffic to create a comfortable and safe experience for users. They'll be accessible for the many ways we actively travel, and they'll be located where we need them. Trails like these have the added benefit of bringing smiles to our faces every time we're on them. People of all ages and abilities will be able to access destinations close to home and farther away through the Utah Trail Network, with local and regional trails perfect for everyday activities. This is a vision focused on enhancing the lives of all Utahns from 8 to 80 years old, connecting us more fully to the people and communities that make our state a place we love.
All right. Thank you for indulging me in that. It's a fun way to kind of start, and when we think about Utah Trail Network, kind of set the vision, right? And what we're trying to achieve. So I've come to this committee a couple of times in the past, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity. As you know, the events that have happened within the Trails Division up until this point, the major thing that happened was in May of last year that we programmed 19 projects across the state, 14 of which were programmed for construction, meaning the department is moving them through final design and then into construction. And then the other projects were programmed for a feasibility study. So for those projects, it was that we felt like they met the intent of what the Utah Trail Network is trying to achieve. As in they were really good fit, but they maybe didn't have as much done in the way of design or even initial design. So we decided to program those for feasibility study. So I'm happy to say that most of the projects are getting moving. So they have been assigned a UDOT project manager, and they're now kind of in the process of procuring a consultant, bringing a consultant on board to begin the work, especially for those feasibility studies. We're getting moving on them. So again, this is our website. I've mentioned it before, utahtrailnetwork.udot.utah.gov. If you're interested in kind of reminding yourself on which of those projects, you can come here to the initial programming tab. This lists out all of those, at this link here, it lists out all those projects that we funded, as well as a map. So you can see, if you scroll down, there's a map. So every one of those dark blue lines that then have either a pink border or an orange border, those are the projects that we funded. So the orange is for feasibility study. and the pink are the ones that were funded for construction. So just a quick reminder on that, the work that's been done. So if you scroll down, I wanted to kind of show this graphic because this really steps into what I want to talk about next, which is the kind of long-term vision and the outreach associated with it. So on this graphic, you'll see two kind of the left side, Utah Trail Network initial projects, and then on the right side, the Utah Trail Network long-term vision and plan. So we really, when the funding became available, we worked quickly to kind of in this side of the chart, if you will. We wanted to kind of program some of that initial money quickly and just get moving, show that there was a lot of motivation for the program and a lot of projects that could see benefit right away. As you all know in your communities, there's probably projects that have been backlogged and just need funding. So we tried to really take a lens of let's establish the guiding principles of our program and then let's put that money to work right away. So that was those 19 projects that I just discussed, that we responded immediately to trail needs, especially for those that had a quick win potential. And the goal was then to also seed the idea and the concept of this larger Utah Trail Network. So as part of that, we did outreach across the entire state. We did 8 kind of workshops. And then we also worked, if you recall, the outreach that WFRC did last fall and winter. And there was a component within that outreach effort that talked about the Utah Trail Network, especially in relation to the Beehive Bikeways and kind of other regional active transportation goals. So thank you for that, because it was that effort that helped inform the projects that we just funded, in those 19 projects. But really, this is where we are now. We're moving into this phase of the Utah Trail Network where we're taking a look at the long-term vision and plan. Really, the goal is to figure out where is the Utah Trail Network across the entire state. Because this program, I'll remind you, this is not a nomination-based program, right? We're figuring out where this Utah Trail Network is, and then year over year, we'll look to fund different portions of it. So at this phase, we're going to be working with stakeholders on what does this network need to do? Where does it need to go? And then we're going to be creating that initial first phase. And we're also going to be developing our plan for Utah Trail Network operations. So things like, how is maintenance being handled? What are the different amenities that need to be along this trail? Things like that. So it's within this new kind of chapter of our journey in UTN that we'll be going out again for some more outreach. This time it'll be much more tailored, instead of to projects that meet this quick win and responding to immediate needs. This is more, we're going to ask you all to think really big, because this is where is the Utah Trail Network? Where is the interstate system for active transportation? Where's the I-15, the I-80, the I-70? Apologies for a car-centric analogy, but it's just one that I think we can all wrap our head around. So where are those trails that then, at the end of this effort, we'll have a map that outlines where the Utah Trail Network is. So I think, today I just wanted to make notes and put out to you all that this outreach is going to be a really good opportunity to come weigh in and provide thoughts on where are the regional routes, where's that regional spine or backbone. So we'll be kind of coordinating it similar to what we did last fall, as in, we'll have kind of these workshop events. There will be an opportunity to participate virtually, but really the best option is to come in person, because we'll be rolling out maps and having some really good discussions there. But then that kind of effort in conjunction with a couple analysis steps will be what then informs where the Utah Trail Network is. So in terms of timeline, we're kind of thinking that this will be late this year into early 2025. So kind of think November, December, January. I know that's not necessarily the time you're thinking about biking and walking per se. It depends, I guess, on where you are in the state. But it's the kind of the timing that worked, that lined up with our overarching effort. And yeah, we're excited to have these good conversations and keep moving the Utah Trail Network goals forward. So with that, I'll pause, and if there's questions or other things that we can that I can answer, I'm happy to do so.
Okay, are there any questions here in the room? Go
May I
ahead.
make a comment? I appreciate your presentation. I've seen it before, and I'm, of course, thrilled that there's ongoing money to sustain this. And I would just, again, emphasize, as UDOT, looks at this, and I realize it's a statewide, to really think of the distinctions such as what Kendall Willardson brought up, that in urban areas, there's not only an opportunity for recreation, because when I perceive this, I see it as very recreational oriented. And there are those that would ride their bike more than a couple miles, and that's great. But I hope when UDOT is thinking about the Wasatch Front, that they really do key in on these urban challenges. And they're not just at intersections, and they're not just, and I know who I'm speaking to, so I don't mean to oversimplify, but I think we need to keep our eye on the prize, and that is getting people outdoors, not only for their individual benefit, but to help with the air quality challenges that we have. And I would emphasize that while we put safety first, we also need to really think about the aesthetics of what it is to walk or ride. I just was at a park in Kaysville, and I apologize for picking on Kaysville, but my grandson was playing in a soccer game. And I don't know, frankly, whether it was on the edge of the new North Davis Highway, but the intensity of the sound of those fast-moving vehicles adjacent to a children's park, it was really distressing. And I think that we need to really be cognizant. I know in my neck of the woods, there's going to be a Utah Trails Network likely along I-215. And we need to really be thoughtful about what we're subjecting these cyclists to. Is it such intense noise that even though it makes sense to go along an interstate, is it really sustainable? And so I know you have a huge challenge in front of you. But again, those urban challenges, which affect over half the population of Utah, I hope that UDOT will really clue into that real deeply. Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate the comment about the transportation aspect. That is a huge, that's a huge emphasis. And I think part of the reason that the legislature decided to allocate the funding to UDOT as opposed to, for example, the Division of Outdoor Recreation is because they also are keyed into that idea of transportation, and thinking about it in that way. So yeah, 100% on board with that. It's just interesting because we're trying to work through where and how, or should we draw the line, right, between a recreation facility and a transportation facility. So it's something that, again, we'll ask for all of your kind of help and support on thinking through that and being like, okay, and so one of the things that we're really keen into is, what are the amenities that we're providing access to? What's the change in access to opportunities when we construct this, if we construct this type of trail, right, versus another? Because I think, to me at least, that's a big indicator of transportation. We're providing access to grocery stores, jobs, schools, right? So that's one of the measures that we're going to be looking at to evaluate if the trail kind of makes the cut for the Utah Trail Network. And I'm so on board with that. And I think that it's a little bit of an unsung hero of these trails, is the fact that they can be for transportation. So hugely emphasizing that. But obviously the added benefit is people can recreate on them too, right? Again, we're not going to draw a hard line in the sand there. And yes, your comments around design are all well taken as well. We have our trail network engineer in the back here. One of his main goals is to figure out the design standards for these trails, things like amenities, sound wall, all of that we'll be looking at as well. Because we want it to be a world-class facility, right? You should be on a UTN facility and go, I know I'm on this because of look at these design cues. I know that this is comfortable and safe, and yeah.
Well, a good place for UDOT to start really is the state routes that you already own. And I really was planning to call Devin Weeder late last week because we have an ongoing problem, and this does pertain to what we're talking about here. We know we have Strava reports that show where the performance bicyclists particularly ride, and I don't know how many recreational riders use Strava, but along State Route SR 190 and SR 210, there are extreme dangers. The way the bicycle lanes have been marked there, there's extreme danger that's been brought to the attention of UDOT for the last 6 months. It's still not rectified at the mouth of Big Cottonwood Canyon. Yet UDOT is marching ahead with a very extensive plan to redo that intersection. And I really plead, Stephanie, that you'll take back to Carlos Braceras and UDOT the need to train project managers throughout UDOT, especially on your own state routes, to really look out for the safety of bicyclists, because I'm not seeing it in Cottonwood Heights. I hate to go on record on that, but that's my statement. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here and just make one quick comment. Fortunately, up in Layton, we had the expansion of Highway 89, and it actually was from pretty much Farmington, Kaysville up through Layton, and it will go into South Weber. And that forward thinking here, knowing that that is a very busy area as well. And certainly, we've learned from what's gone on in Salt Lake, we were able to put in a access tunnel that goes underneath 80 now. Now, is the trails all connected yet? No, but I think that's what this is all about. But that was being at least a little forward thinking and making sure that we were able to put that tunnel in at this point so that we can continue to move the process forward. Okay, are there any comments online?
It just looked like there was one comment online from Mike. Do you want to unmute and speak your comment, or do you want me to just read it out loud? And I should do it. Do it, Mike. Okay, well, just to not keep everyone on the seat of on the edge of their seat here. Okay, along with the vision for the network, which is awesome, is there discussion about design standards to make the network safe, direct, and intuitive to use? So yeah, thank you, Mike. I think you may have heard I alluded to this when I was answering the previous question. Absolutely, design standards are right on the horizon. Honestly, we're getting going on that. One of the big things we were working on initially was looking through UDOT's existing design standards to kind of decide what do we need to update, what are things that we don't have that we need completely new, and just use this as an opportunity to really think creatively about how this network is going to be the most useful for people and the most comfortable, intuitive, all of the things that you just said, Mike. And I don't want to put Trevor on the spot, but again, he's our network engineer, and he's going to be kind of working on that in the next couple of months. But work has already been done, so that'll be really exciting because it's everything from like the turn radii to like the wayfinding, right? It's kind of both aspects of what makes a trail great. So yes, that's coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any others? Okay, if not, I'd like to, thank Stephanie for that great update. I mean, keep up the good work, and certainly, I think we all agree it takes all of us to kind of figure this out, so keep it
Mayor,
going.
Maybe one thing I'd
Sure.
put Hugh a little bit on the spot. We've been doing outreach and efforts for Beehive Bikeways, and there may be some confusion from the group about what's the Utah Trails Network, what's the Beehive Bikeways Network, what are the trails within, or the bikeways, active transportation within the RTP? What about my local master plan that we just completed? Hugh?
Just because you're confused, Jory, doesn't mean
I
everybody
know.
else is.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot
in a
going
good
on.
way.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Thank you. And these are very much planning efforts that are layered over the top of one another. And as Stephanie described, if you think about the Utah Trail Network as the interstate system, well, the interstate system doesn't always get people to their final destination. And so the BI Bikeways builds on that and getting people to the Wasatch Choice Centers that we all work on collectively through the Wasatch Choice Vision. And then the RTP is another layer below that, right, for different types of connections, because Utah Trail Network and Beehive Bikeways are the high comfort separated trails, right? But not every bike facility is that, nor should it or can it be. So the different types of facilities in the RTP. And then even more fine grained would be all the local plans that you all have done, either underway or in recent years. And so they all layer on top of each other. And then, as a regional planning agency and as a state agency, right, we're focused on those higher level connections to get people where they need to go. So hopefully that helps. Thanks for the opportunity.
But we're definitely, I think within Utah Trail Network, we're starting with all of these plans. This is the base, right, for the UTN. So just know that it's not like we're starting from scratch and making new things up. It's a lot of, I think, honestly, a lot of the work has already been done and we just need to pull it together, right? And say, okay, this is the one that is the UTN versus the Beehive Bikeway. There's a strong possibility that there is a Beehive Bikeway segment that potentially is a UTN, right? So it's that effort of really, combing through all of these plans and saying, okay, these are the locations that are the Utah Trail Network. So just to say, to hearken back to even how they're being used and potentially become a part of these larger networks.
Okay, very good. I'm glad you brought that up so that everybody can kind of understand the various layers. Okay, let's go ahead and move on then. We have another present.
I had a question.
Sure, go ahead.
So I apologize. I had my hand raised. I'm not sure how many people were monitoring that. The question I have is the fall workshops for WFRC. How are you addressing this? I think Beehive Bikeways is on the agenda. I can't remember if I saw UTN on the agenda. Are those both being addressed at the fall workshop or just one or the other?
I can answer that. Thanks, Becca. Good question. Beehive Bikeways will be part of the workshops along with transit and roadways and centers. And UTN will not be directly on the agenda. Otherwise, the outreach that Stephanie mentioned earlier would be the appropriate venue to do that. If you have feedback, of course, about the UTN, we're happy to pass that on from the workshops, but it's not explicitly being addressed.
Thank you. I will look forward to the announcements on the UTN.
Okay, very good.
And of course, I'm coming to the fall workshop. Of course.
Hey, that's what we need. Attendance.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank everyone for their comments and for their feedback on that. Okay, I will at this time. Are you good? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move on then to item number 5, which is a presentation. And Meg Pagan is going to give us a presentation regarding the Wasatch Choice Centers and which may be the best fit for your community. So Meg, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Mayor. Meg Pagan. I'm our Community and Economic Development Director here at the Wasatch Front Regional Council. We're going to shift gears a little and talk more about land use than perhaps this committee is used to. Thank you, Becca, for the very nice segue. Our Wasatch Choice workshops are coming up in the fall. Transportation is always a key component of those. And this round, centers are also a really big component of those and the land use that's part of the Wasatch Choice vision. You always think transportation is part of the vision and land use is a key piece there as well. Here are Wasatch Choice strategies. You're probably very familiar with them. You've seen the map behind me quite a bit. The 4 key strategies are transportation choices, housing options, parks and public spaces, and city and town centers. 3 of the 4 there are rather land use focused, right? Land use is a really big piece of the vision because we have transportation to get places. So we're going to talk about places a little bit today. There are 8 real land use types in the Wasatch Choice vision, and 4 of those are centers. Now keep in mind, this vision is not meant to be a direct reflection of all of your general plans, right? You have lots more land use in there than 8 different types, depending on your city. And I imagine that 4 of your land use types in your general plan are not different types of centers, but we're trying to capture what land use looks like across the region. And so we have these, the 4 center types: metropolitan center, urban center, city center, and neighborhood center. I'm going to unpack all of those quite a bit. And we also have employment districts. These are areas that are really dense with employees, right? Think Hill Air Force Base. industrial districts. This is not just each little warehouse, right, but areas that are really dense with industrial uses. Residential areas really captures everything else in our vision. We realize there's commercial in there and all of that, but it's really, you know, places that are a little bit more status quo in our community, and then parks and public spaces. All of these are really important land use types. Some of them are a little more complicated, and that's why we talk about centers so much. It takes a little more city effort to make those happen, and they have a lot of benefits. So here's our Wasatch Choice map. I just want to give everyone a little bit of a visual. You can go online, you can click the centers and land use at the top, and you can see what's in your community. We'll do a lot of that at the workshop as well. Here are 4 center types. So neighborhood center, those could be scattered absolutely everywhere, right? These are places that really serve just your neighborhood, just your community. It might just be a few shops. It might not be a lot. We'll talk more about that. City centers, you're adding a little density. Maybe you have one of these in your city. They're capturing more people, right? So think of the circle of capture, the people that are actually going these places growing a little bit as you get more dense. Oops, clicker's a little sensitive today, I guess. Urban centers, you're getting more dense, right? Maybe you're looking at buildings that are, they've got elevators, right? They're 5 stories plus, and you're capturing people. Maybe there's not one of these in every community, right? Maybe these are 1 per 4 or something like that. You might go to your neighboring city's city center when you need things that aren't week to week needs. And then metropolitan centers, we don't have very many of those, right? We're really looking at Ogden, Salt Lake, Provo's growing in this direction. Centers they are always these 3 key things. When we talk about centers, this is what we mean. They're places that are walkable, places that are mixed use, not just one use, right? Those employment districts look maybe like a center, lots of office buildings there, but they're not a mix of uses. They're just office. And then they're more intense than the surrounding area, and that's relative. Your city might not be very dense. Your center might not be very dense, but it's probably a little bit more dense than the rest of your city. I'm using the D word, the dense word, so don't throw anything at me. Okay, and there's other things that make a center successful. It can't just be walkable, a mix of uses, and more intense than the surrounding. It has to have things in it like housing. Housing is important because rooftops support those businesses. Retail and dining, perhaps. Maybe there's some office space. Probably public space, right? A place for people to convene that can look a lot of different ways. And there might be civic uses. A lot of our cities have kind of anchored their city center with their city hall. Centers are not strip malls, and they're not auto-oriented. There's a place for all of that, and a lot of our cities have those. That's just not what we're talking about today. There's other things too. These are like the sprinkles on top. These are what make you really want to be there. Community gathering spaces, maybe there's a little amphitheater, interesting or unique architecture, wayfinding signage, places, you know where you're at, you know where you're going. Parking is in the rear of the buildings. It's probably not big parking lots that you're walking through to get up to the entrance of a building. There's destinations, there's greenery, there's programming, right? All these things make a place special. Oopsie. So what makes a center walkable? That's really what we're talking about today, is that centers are in and of themselves these hotspots for active transportation, right? You're going there, and then you might be ditching your vehicle and walking or biking around. So in order for a center to be walkable, it needs to be safe, both physically from vehicles, and also you need to feel safe. It needs to be well lit, other things like that that make you actually feel safe in your environment. Comfortable. The buildings might enclose the sidewalks so you don't feel like you're exposed to the vehicles. The sidewalk's wide enough for you to walk with a buddy or maybe a couple of buddies. You don't have to go single file. There's street trees, so you're shaded. It's pedestrian scale. That's a little bit of a jargon term, but that just really means you can read the signs. The lights aren't for the cars. They're not way taller than you. The lights are kind of near you. Things like that. You think of like a blade sign that sticks out so that it's eye level. Maybe there's lights and things that are fun. Like this is an image from Fort Collins I love. You feel really safe there at night, and it's a little bit playful, and you might walk a little too far just on accident because you're having a good time. There's destinations, there's places to go. We could walk a really long way to nowhere, but you're probably just exercising. And then there's a way to leave your vehicle behind. There's not no parking. There might be plenty of parking. In fact, you might park really easily, but you're just not driving from TJ Maxx to Ulta. You're parking your car, you're leaving it there, and you're moving on some other mode of transportation like your feet or your bike. This is an example from a station area plan. So this is Farmington's area surrounding their front runner station. And this is just their connections map. So I just want to point out just how many ways a center can have active transportation involved. There's, of course, highways, there's major rail corridor through here, but you'll also see, you can't see, but I'll read on the legend, there's trails, greenway space, bike path, pedestrian tunnel, transit circulator, and stream adjacent open space. That's a lot of active transportation, right? And that's in addition to sidewalks that are going to be nice to walk on and things like that. So you really have to be intentional about the active transportation through your centers to make them work, because your hope is that someone gets off that train station and they spend the day there walking around, right? Okay, here's our types of centers, again, represented just a little differently, and I'm going to run through these because we have some brand new, really great graphics to help you visualize what these might look like in your community. So starting with neighborhood center, this is potentially a little dense. A neighborhood center could be much less than this, but the key components are, there's neighborhood amenities, like maybe there's a small grocer, maybe there's a salon, maybe there's a Starbucks or a Swig or a local coffee shop. City Hall might be there. And most importantly, there's probably public space there. This might be adjacent to your city's park or something like that. And there's a few more housing choices than likely are in the rest of the city. Maybe townhomes, twin homes, perhaps apartments, but that might be more intense than this community has. And there's certainly single family, maybe it's on a smaller lot. Here's some more visuals of a neighborhood center. You can see that public space adjacent to two-story buildings, a little bit more intense than what's surrounding, maybe a few three-story housing options, and lots of housing in the background. You see that parking is encircled in the center of the block in this example, so that you might be walking along the edges and there's more interest there. Maybe playground opportunities. So this would be serving just the surrounding community. And you can see lots of housing choices in this rendering. Moving up to the city center, maybe that's up to 4 stories, a little more intense. Maybe there's a transit component here of an enhanced bus, a bus that comes more frequently. A few more housing options than the surrounding area. Again, maybe transitioning out to those single family neighborhoods so it doesn't feel like a huge building next to a single family home. And probably more dining opportunities and shopping here than a neighborhood center. Some more visuals of that. You see that bus, really great pedestrian infrastructure in our renderings. That was really key to this project. See these nice safe crossings and wide sidewalks, lots of shade, tree canopy. Okay, and then moving up to the urban center, maybe you've got some regional scale employment. Maybe people actually commute here to work. Maybe by BRT. I don't know. That could be a transit option in this center type. Yeah, you're seeing some denser buildings there, more intense housing, apartment buildings, etc. Public space again, and lots of pedestrian infrastructure. This has the opportunity for a street to be closed off here, those bollards. And some sidewalk dining, like lots of interest in this center. And then we have our Metro Center. That looks really dense. It's probably downtown Ogden, Salt Lake, etc. Things like that. And this might be where you have rail transit, front runner stations or light rail. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because I think, people have been to dense downtowns. You can imagine large events taking place here, mostly dense housing, not a lot of single family in a metro center. Maybe it's a few blocks away at least. Okay. All of the land uses in your city are important to the function of your city. There's a lot of benefits to centers and they're hard to make work, so you have to really be intentional about it. Some of those benefits include biking, walking, transit use increases, an increase in property and sales tax per acre. So they might generate revenue for the rest of your city. Street and utility costs per unit is lower, right? If you gather those units into less space, the street's less long, that's less utility infrastructure, less maintenance on your roads, etc. Indoor and outdoor water use per unit might decrease. A lot of that's landscaping, right? You're just less yard, Residents feel a sense of place. You kind of know where you're at. It doesn't feel like everywhere else you've ever been because there's things that make it unique. And they give us the ability to maintain open space, larger lots, or establish businesses elsewhere in our communities. I hope I'm making it clear, not everywhere should be a center. In fact, they wouldn't work if it was. But this gives us the opportunity to have reserve space in our community for some of those other things and condense some of our uses. Okay, any questions? Maybe I'll turn it back to the chair.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions here or online?
Just a quick question. I know you, the upcoming Wasatch Choice workshops, obviously they're by the locale. And I'm wondering, are you going to give this same presentation at that meeting?
Something
I'm going to
similar.
make sure my council members are all there.
Thank you. We're
At least
excited to
more
have
than
them
me.
there.
Last year I was the only one, and I just admonish all the cities. We happen to be in the mode of looking at a town center, but this was a great presentation, and I really commend you. Thank you, Meg.
Thank you.
Come here.
Any other
I
comments?
I have a question or comment. Becca Rolfe, Salt Lake City. What I'm thinking about a little is I think we're doing within the Wasatch Front, we're doing a pretty good job of density. I see a lot of locations where we are having quite a number of like townhomes being built. So we're making progress on, and particularly around transit centers, we seem to be making progress on density. Where I see that we are having challenges is in the mixed use aspect of those density locations. And I'm wondering if WFRC or others are thinking about models that help us to get the mixed use aspect so that the community is not density that is still car dependent, but density that truly has those mixed use ingredients. And I'm thinking a little bit about like, can we make a little list of like, what are the important things that go into that neighborhood center or that city center or whatever it is? Like, do you have a library? Do you have a post office? Do you have a grocery store? Do you have, a couple of restaurants? Like, what are the ingredients? And then putting in place some type of land use system that really brings those in. Like, I know some cities have had RFPs in order to bring in, for example, a downtown grocery store. I don't know about in Utah, but in other states I've experienced that where the city says, we want a downtown grocery store, and the free market is not necessarily going to provide that downtown grocery store. So we're going to go out and seek a developer for our downtown grocery store. And I think one of the things compared to the historic patterns of development, so many of our businesses are chains. So I'm just wondering if there's any thinking about that, model ordinances, some type of regional approach to that challenge of really getting in the mixed use. Sorry for the long question.
Sure, I'll give it a go, and then anyone else can chime in as well. We have some of that, but I think that, there's so many ways that these tools can be helpful or not helpful. That's a really good idea, just a list of some of those key amenities and maybe some strategies to accomplish it. Actually, following 2024, when we have our vision map refined, we do want to turn more to an implementation focus. So those are really good ideas, and we'll continue working on that. I hate to say the word toolbox, but it's really important here because each city is so unique. They have different resources, first and foremost, but also different political climates, et cetera. So there's got to be a whole bunch of different ways to put these things to work in your city. Thank you, Becca.
Okay, are there any other comments? I think the key takeaway here is perhaps that there are multiple ways to develop your city, that don't be in the mindset that it's just one small little town center when you need to think broad base and have multiple amenities in each one of the locations, depending upon your demographics, your geographics, and access and everything like that. So I think that's probably the main takeaway. Was there a comment online?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
If anybody's going to the APA conference, Christy from WFRC and Mike West from Lehigh and I are giving a presentation about the things Becca just asked about. So
There's
It's
also,
great to
really
come.
quick plug, there's also a session on ground floor mixed use, which is a complicated component of centers. So there's lots of good stuff at APA this week.
Very good. Okay, well, thank you very much for that presentation. I want to go ahead and move the meeting along. So we'll go on to item number 5, which is a discussion for our active transportation and the traffic impact studies. And I know Hugh's our professional here. He's the one that's knee deep into it, or is always first and foremost on these studies. And so I'm going to turn the time over to him to kind of help us drive the question, or help us all think about how do we ensure impact to biking and walking are also taken into consideration during the studies. So Hugh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And this is actually a nice segue from Meg's presentation on centers. And just to give a really simplified overview of traffic impact studies for those that might not be familiar, right? Essentially, when you have a piece of ground that is looking to develop or redevelop, right, with some sort of project that figures to have an impact on traffic, you take a look at how that will impact people coming and going from that site and other traffic around it. And so you engage in this traffic impact study that looks at, based on different formulas on what's called trip generation, and what types of street and or transportation improvements are needed to accommodate the new traffic demands. So just to lay the land a little bit, this is out in the Harriman and Riverton area, this big blank piece of land here, right, getting ready for development. Well, they build the first phase of that development there that pops up, and what are the roadway improvements that came along with that, right? These sections here. So I'm not saying that the developer built all these things. I'm just showing an example of improvements to the transportation system that came about the same time as this development. Well, the second phase of that development comes in, and also new roadway improvements, right, that come to access and get people into and out of that development. Another example from in the Midvale area. Thank you for telling myself, yeah, Midvale. So before, right, again, site's getting prepped for that development, and now everything is built there, quite a lot of demand there. And so what changed from this picture to that picture with the street? Well, there's a whole center median, planted center median that was there that was torn out to accommodate center turning traffic and left turn lanes to get in that development. If you zoom in a little bit closer to the intersection, there it was at the top of the screen. Again, pre-development and post-development, they added a left-hand turn lane and restriped the intersection here to deal with some of the traffic impacts. So just the idea, right? Just to, again, give you some examples of what these traffic impact studies can come to. And so the question sort of here is, and this is, again, pertains to centers because of what Meg said, right? They're walkable places, right? It's not auto-oriented. But this can have an effect in any development going into your city when these are required. How does not just the development look at the impacts for vehicles, but what are the impacts then for people biking and walking? And specifically, I'd like to think about if there are needed changes to the roadway network, will those positively or negatively affect people biking and walking? And is that the desired outcome that we're looking for? So just looking to open it up to the room and anybody online to see if you've had experience going through this process, what examples you may have of incorporating biking and walking into these traffic impact studies, at minimum, so folks biking and walking aren't ignored, and looking forward, how are they really accommodated well? So I'll open it up with that. Not a lot of engineers in the room, apparently. Trevor, put you on the spot. No, I'm just kidding, Trevor. Don't worry about it. And I guess just raise of hands around the room. Do you know if your city does have traffic impact studies done when a development's coming in? Maybe I should just start there. Yeah, they get done. Okay. And maybe this is a question, if there's not a lot of experience in this particular room, that we could take to one of our technical advisory committees, right, with staff members who could speak to this a little bit more and come back and report. But I don't want to close it off too early. Yes, Councilmember Brill.
Yes, maybe this is taking a step before a TIS is made. But foundationally, the challenge that I'm experiencing in my city as we look at our town center location along Fort Union Boulevard is the type of study requested if in fact a municipality is looking to accomplish something. Like in our case, Fort Union Boulevard has been 2 lanes in each direction. So we're talking 4 lanes across. It's posted at 40 miles an hour. The cars often are driving up to 50 miles an hour. And this is supposedly our main street of our city. And so isn't it incumbent upon a city to consider more of a performance outcome than necessarily ordering a traffic study? And what I'm talking about is we just, my council colleagues, the majority chose to employ a kind of a conventional traffic study of about a half a mile space within Fort Union Boulevard. But if the outcome we want is to make it more walkable, to create a town center and a main street, then don't we have to put it out there for the expertise, the outsourced company, to show us how we can get, we've many times analyzed the speed and density and volume. I mean, we could go to WFRC mapping and find that out. And so we seem to be doing that again. And my question is, doesn't a city have to look for, if we want the outcome to be walkability, we're not just interested in what the motorists want to do. We're interested in how the flow, is there a possibility of a flow that would allow, maybe 1 lane in each direction, things that are outside of just simply analyzing the volume and speed that motorists feel comfortable driving. I don't mean to make too complicated of a question, but, again, I find that even in the only 3 years I've been serving, this is like our 2nd traffic study, but we're going to get data that's going to support this high density travel through the main part of our city. And we're not really, in my understanding, going after a study that would help us to figure out how cars could flow up to I-215 in a way other than jamming through the center of our city. Does that make any sense? You and I have met a few
I have
times.
a question for you, Ellen.
Yes.
Is it a priority for your council?
It is a priority because we spent $14 million purchasing 10-acre lot on which we plan to build the foundation of a city
But I'm
center.
talking about, is it a priority for your council to have a walkable area?
They do cite that based on our surveys of our population.
So if that's a priority to the council, then why isn't the study incorporating that? I mean, you can get a study for whatever you want. I mean, as long as you're willing to pay for it and that's what you truly want to find out, and you have supportive council, then that's what it should be. I guess I'm kind of not understanding where the
Well,
disconnect
I
is.
discussed this with Dina Blaze, and she was explaining to me, there's 2 ways of putting out an RFP. One is based on asking for data, certain data, and another one is a performance-based RFP. And we put out a data-based, we want to know the volume and at what speed cars are going through like 5 different intersections.
Right.
Okay, so
that's one type,
that,
and
that doesn't, to me, include walkability. That includes only speed and
right,
volume.
so I'm confused. I really am. If you have supportive council and that the information that they want is what you're saying that they want, but yet they can, they approved a study for something that's not going to give the data that you want. I don't understand why. For my understanding of how things work, You know, if that's what council wanted, then that's the type of study you should have. You should be able to get one that does both. I'm just wondering why that wasn't commissioned.
Well, I'm also trying to understand that. And I guess I'm always looking for precedents, what have other cities done to accomplish? And the closest I can understand is, again, going from data, I don't know if that's the right word, database RFP to a performance or outcome-based RFP. Has anybody in the room gone to a different form of RFP? I mean, beyond asking for data on walkability in cars, you put it out as we're trying to create a Main Street walkable area and let the experts that are from these various companies come forward. Is there any comment on this sort of thing related to accomplishing better
I
walkability?
think we have a couple of hands online. Can we start with Carl and then go to Mike?
Well, mine is not necessarily an answer to that last question about changing the RFP structure, but kind of just our first question about have we worked where we've required developers to perform a traffic study and what kind of results did we see? And I have a few thoughts. So I worked as a land use planner for a while. And so we would require a lot of these traffic studies and then require the developer to make those changes. And in the rural areas, a lot of times the level of service on these roads are already A, and getting them to switch over to like a level of service of E or F where changes might happen, it's really unlikely. Like you'd need a massive development. And so requiring it of the developer usually is kind of a waste of time and money because no changes are going to happen, but they have to commission this big study. Another thing is in more urban areas or like sort of the town centers of these rural areas where the roads are a little bit closer to maybe like a C level of service currently. I saw there was quite a bit of times where the engineer or the firm would commission them out to like a 30-year sort of vision. And sometimes that led to sort of an overbuilding of the sort of whatever new improvements went in, like their recommendations were sort of overbuilt. So they maybe got rid of some traffic calming measures that were in place or some kind of friction for vehicles going through. And so it did improve the level of service, but in a lot of the cases, it kind of degraded the pedestrian environment a little bit for that reason, that it was sort of, built for a road 30 years from now with a higher volume to accommodate like a level of ACE service. So those are some of my, again, it's not exactly the like requiring pedestrian improvements or bicycle improvements, but it definitely had an effect on pedestrian environment because traffic speeds sometimes went up.
Thanks, Carl. And just for those, right, when he talks about level of service, he's talking about how easily cars move through an area. So A is free flow, C is a little bit more friction, all the way down to F. Mike and then Kate.
You guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, I was just gonna say in Lehigh, we do require traffic impact studies if there's, a certain threshold met. They're pretty typical traffic impact studies as you'd find anywhere else that really prioritize vehicle throughput. But we do have an awesome traffic engineer that's on board with us in Lehigh, and we've had a lot of discussions. It's not part of our traffic impact study standards at the moment, but really are trying to look at other elements, especially safety and making, considering walking and biking. Because I always ask the question, do we plan for the traffic we have, or do we try to plan for the traffic we want to have? So we always try to ask that question. But one example we do have of something we've done is we have a kind of a TOD area that's starting construction on the north end of Lehigh. And the original traffic model showed it as being a 5-lane arterial road right through the center of it. And at first, the kind of response is like, wow, we just got a lot of demand that's going to be here in the future. We just got to make it work. But our engineers actually said, well, let's take a look again, and they made some other assumptions in the model, but because it's so important to have that connectivity to the future rail station from the whole development area, now that we actually reduced the number of lanes. It's 1 lane each direction. It's got a central median, so narrowed lane. So it's a whole different world now than what it would have been, because they did take a step back and really consider the walkability and bikeability of the area. So it's not standardized for us, but we are starting to consider a lot more of these elements as we look at traffic circulation.
May I ask the clarifying question? Is that a green space you're working with, or what kind of space for this TOD area?
Yeah, that's a greenfield development. So it was, undeveloped. So that's all new infrastructure they're putting in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Kate?
Hi, thank you. So we're actually, to speak to that, and I loved Mike's comment about, planning for the traffic we have versus the traffic we plan to have. Prime example, in Morgan County, we just had a commercial development, being a grocery store and an Ace Hardware, open up on the other side of our county, where we have not had commercial development in many, many years. That we did require a traffic study, but that's exactly what it is a vehicle traffic study. So the day the grocery store opened, when we had 90 middle school students crossing a highway to go to the grocery store and check it out, we had this huge public outcry that why didn't we consider this, and why is there not a pedestrian bridge? And it's like, well, how do we anticipate that 90 middle schoolers are going to leave the middle school, and of course have not done it since it was that day. But now I have to attend like the school board meeting and explain what our potential actions are. So we do keep on contract a gentleman that does traffic studies for us here in Morgan County, and he's absolutely brilliant, but we can't estimate what people are going to do. We've been asking for a traffic light at Trappers Loop for some time. We have to update our ADA trail in order to make that possible, and the community pushed back, saying no one walks there. And then a grocery store opens 2 weeks later, and now it's an emergency. So I do respect the need for traffic studies, but I think we need to change the definition of what a traffic study is to include other modes of transportation, such as pedestrian and bicycles. So thank you for your feedback. I'd love to hear the responses on RFP changing.
Thanks, Kate. So just a thought from me, listening to everybody, and I think it comes back to what Councilman Burrell and Mayor Merrill were discussing. And I think my understanding is a lot of our traffic impact studies are set up to look at car traffic by their definition and what's required in the study. And as Mayor Merrill mentioned, well, if we want a different outcome, maybe we need to set those studies up, or the requirements, which are usually in our development codes, right, about when it's needed and what is needed to be looked at in those studies. We need to change that criteria locally to do that. And so that, as Mike said, right, it's not standardized in Lehigh. It could be standardized. They have a supportive staff that is taking measures beyond what's looked at in their requirements in the traffic impact study, because that's the direction that their staff is moving in and has support. And so, right, some of it's political, some of it is technical, and they sort of ideally both need to be moving in the same direction to standardize something with the political backing, of your local authority there. That's my sort of wrap it up thought, but doesn't need to mean wrap up the conversation. It's just
May I just make one more comment, only because it so ties into the great presentations that are being given today. You know, when Meg presents coming up with all these wonderful workshops you're putting on, since I know my council majority is most inclined, their ears really open up when they hear the numbers. And you brought out a lot of great numbers, Meg, but one of the things that I think we need to emphasize in order to get more political interest in this is when people get out of their cars, they spend money. And if we're talking, obviously, we're not talking about parks now. We're talking about any level of city center or even these neighborhood centers where there's restaurants and local businesses. I know, at every council meeting practically, we talk about how we're gonna help those local businesses, et cetera. But I think that needs to be in our conversation, that when people get out of their car is when they spend money. And I know that's what I try to emphasize with Fort Union Boulevard. But it's a difficult concept that people who have all their life driven everywhere they ever go, it is so challenging at a political level to advance true walkability, because maybe walking the dog is the closest thing they've ever come to walkability. So I just really appreciate everybody in the room advancing this core concept. And until we get more people in leadership, both politically and in agencies and in our business community, that is, again, people will spend money when they get out of their cars, and how can we get them out of their cars? Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll turn the time back over to Mayor Petro.
Okay, thank you everyone for that good discussion there and feedback. We have one item left here on the agenda, which is a very good one and an interesting one. And so with that, obviously this is our last meeting of the year for the active transportation. So it'd be a perfect time for us to look at the recap of what's going on. And so I'm going to turn the time back over to you.
Yeah, tag, you're it. Thanks, Mayor. So again, just thinking about next year and the scheduling, we've trying to figure out the best time to make sure folks are available for this. We sent out a poll, Jordan did a little bit ago, that just asked for the specific members, the voting members, to give us their best options. We had 3 options. I think it was second Tuesday, second Wednesday, and second Thursday of February, April, June, August, and October. Okay, George shaking his head. Third Thursday, second Thursday. Okay, anyways, it's in the poll. And just giving everybody that maybe didn't have a chance to do that, to scan this code if you're in the room. Or Jordan, do we have a link directly we can put in the chat for people online, just to go to this little poll? Just ask that you fill that out. You can put more than one option down, right? So it's not the best option, it's any option that works for you. And that way we can just make sure we get the most information possible before we schedule for next year. But we will stick with the February, April, June, August, and October months. And what specific day, that's what we'll figure out as we get this information back. So please have a sort of calendar hold or save the date for February of 2025 for our next meeting, and then the specific details on that meeting will be forthcoming. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. That pretty much took care of our other business, letting everyone know when our next meeting will be. So does anyone else have anything else they'd like to bring before this committee? If not, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I would add at the bottom of the agenda, there's upcoming meetings. We alluded to fall workshops in the WFRC area coming up starting next Wednesday through the week before Thanksgiving. If you're a local community member, UDOT, UTA, transportation partner, and you did not get the invite and you'd like to attend, reach out to myself or Jordan, and we can get you the invitation. And we're also doing stakeholder outreaches, including universities and other landholding groups to get their input on the Wasatch Choice Centers, transportation projects to explore. So some good upcoming meetings. And I know Mountain Lands Association of Governments are also looking to do some fall workshops as well.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's good. So we can all put these on our calendars. Okay, anything else? Okay, then I'll go ahead and entertain the fact that this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you everyone for attending, both online and in person.